Good day, everyone. How are you today? I hope you are doing well. Today, we are going to talk about the multiple choice test. What do you mean by multiple choice test? Class, a multiple choice question is a question type where the respondent is asked to choose one or more items from a limited list of choices. A generalization of the true-false test, the multiple-choice type of test class offers the student with more than two options per item to choose from. Each item in a multiple-choice test consists of two parts, the STEM and the options. The STEM class is the beginning part of the item that presents the item as a problem to be solved, a question, or an incomplete statement to be completed. On the other hand, the options are the possible answers you can choose from, with the correct answer called the key or the key answers, and the incorrect answers called the distractors. Now, what are the skills mastered in a multiple choice type of test? The skills mastered in a multiple choice type of test are the application, synthesis, analysis, and evaluation levels of learning, such as discrimination between fact and opinion, interpret cause and effect relationships, or even charts and graphs, and make inferences from given data. Now, here are the advantages and disadvantages of a multiple choice test. Let's start with the advantages. First, it can cover a broad range of content. Second, there's no room for subjectivity because it is easily scored and graded, so it is very objective class. Third, it measures a variety of levels of learning from the lower order thinking skills until the higher order thinking skills. Fourth, when well constructed, it has the proven to be an effective assessment tool. Fifth, minimum of writing for students. Sixth, they have fast processing times. Seventh, you can ask more questions. It takes less time to complete a multiple choice question compared to an open question. Lastly, respondents don't have to formulate an answer but can focus on the content. Now, here are the disadvantages of a multiple choice type of test. First, it is difficult to come up with plausible destructors or alternative responses. Second, tend to focus on low-level learning objectives. Third, construction of good items is really time-consuming. And lastly, measuring ability to organize and express ideas is not possible. Now, here are the rules in constructing a multiple choice test. Rule number 1. Do not use unfamiliar words, terms, and phrases. Class, you have to keep the vocabulary consistent with the examinee's level of understanding. Rule number 2. Do not use modifiers that are vague and whose meanings can differ from one person to the next, such as much, often, usually, and etc. Rule number 3. Distractors should be equally plausible and attractive. Rule number 4. All multiple choice options should be grammatically consistent with the STEM. Rule number 5. Avoid complex or awkward word arrangements. Also, avoid use of negatives in the STEM as this may add unnecessary comprehension difficulties. Rule number 6. Avoid presenting sequence items in the same order as in the text. Rule number 7. Avoid use of assumed qualifiers that many examinees may not be aware of. Rule number 8. Test knowledge comprehension, not just recall or remembering. Rule number 9. Use simple sentences structure and precise wording. Use good grammar, punctuation, and spelling consistently. Rule number 10. Place most of the words in the question stem. Rule number 11. Keep all answers choices in the same length because tendency class students will assume that the longer the choices or the option, it is the correct answer. Rule number 12. Do not use negatives or double negatives, as such statements tend to be confusing. It is best to use simpler sentences rather than sentences that would require expertise in grammatical construction. Rule number 13. Mix up the order of the correct answers. Keep the number of options consistent. Rule number 14. Avoid all of the above and none of the above options. Rule number 15. Format the item vertically, not horizontally. Rule number 16. Avoid textbook verbatim phrasing when developing the items. Rule number 17. Avoid items based on opinions. You have to avoid class trivial materials. Rule number 18. Avoid alternatives that are synonymous with others or those that include or overlap others. Rule number 19. Each item stem should be as short as possible. Otherwise, you risk testing more for reading and comprehension skills. Rule number 20. Avoid stems that reveal the answer to another item. The length, explicitness, or degree of technicality of alternatives should not be the determinants of the correctness of the answer. Now, let's identify what are the things to avoid and what are the things that we are going to use in constructing our stem and our options. Let's start with the stem. Class, you have to avoid long or complex sentences, trivial statements, negatives and double negatives, indefinite terms and broad generalization, extraneous material, item characteristics that provide a clue to the answer misconceptions, and when using the completion format, don't leave a blank for completion in the beginning or middle of the stem of the question. It should be in the end. Okay? Now, what are the things that we have to do or to use in the stem? Do use your own words, not statements straight out from the book. So avoid copying the statements word for word. Next, do use single, clearly formulated problems. And do use question form or completion form. For the options class, you have to avoid the following: statements too close to the correct answer, completely implausible responses, and overlapping responses. In the options class, do use plausible and homogeneous distractors, short options and all same length, correct options evenly distributed, and at least 3 or 4 alternatives. That's it! Are you learning? I hope you are. If you have questions, class, please reserve those for our synchronous session next meeting. Thank you for listening and good luck in making your own multiple choice type of test. See you in our next session. Bye!